The sun hung low over the quiet suburban street, its fading light painting the rows of manicured lawns and pristine houses in golden hues. It should have been just another peaceful Saturday evening, but as I turned onto my driveway, something felt wrong. The first thing I noticed was the unfamiliar black SUV parked haphazardly at the curb, its engine still running. The second was the muffled argument coming from the backyard. My gut tightened instantly. After years in the service, instincts like that never leave you, they become part of who you are. I killed the engine and stepped out slowly, every sense sharpened. My wife, Emily, had mentioned earlier that she planned to enjoy the afternoon outside, tending to her flowers and relaxing in the garden. It wasn't unusual for a neighbor to drop by and chat, but this didn't sound like neighborly small talk. The voices were sharp, aggressive, and escalating. I closed the car door without a sound and moved toward the side gate, staying low and quiet. Old habits die hard. As I approached, the words became clearer. "You're in violation, ma'am. This is not acceptable," a man's voice barked, dripping with authority he clearly didn't deserve. Another voice, equally forceful, added, "You've been warned. Now either comply or there will be consequences." Emily's voice, trembling but firm, shot back, "I've done nothing wrong. This is my property, and you can't just barge in here threatening me." The anger in their tone made my blood run cold. No one spoke to my wife that way. No one. I eased the gate open a fraction, peering inside. Two men stood in the yard, both in their late 30s or early 40s, wearing polo shirts with an HOA logo stitched on the chest. They were big, gym-built types, more muscle than sense, but it wasn't just their size that bothered me. It was their posture. They weren't here to talk, they were here to intimidate. One of them had a phone out, recording Emily as if to humiliate her further. The other was standing way too close, his finger jabbing the air near her face. Emily stood her ground near the patio table, arms crossed tightly, chin raised in defiance. I felt a surge of pride and rage at the same time. She was strong, but this wasn't a fair fight. "You can't have this set up here," the taller one sneered, gesturing toward the small pergola Emily had decorated with lights and hanging plants. "It's against the HOA regulations. We've told you before." Emily shot back, her voice shaking, "That's not true. I checked the guidelines before installing it, and there's nothing, that says I can't have this here." The second man laughed cruelly. "Well, we're saying it now. So either you take it down, or we'll make sure you regret it." That was it. The switch flipped inside me. Years of discipline kept me from storming in fists first, but every nerve screamed for action. These men had crossed a line. They didn't know me, didn't know my history, didn't know what I was capable of, but they were about to find out. I pushed the gate open and stepped through, calm and controlled. My boots crunched on the gravel, drawing their attention instantly. Both men turned, their arrogance faltering when they saw me. I didn't say a word at first. I just walked up, slow and deliberate, until I was standing between them and Emily. My presence alone shifted the energy in the yard. Emily exhaled sharply, relief washing over her face. "Who the hell are you?" the taller one demanded, trying to regain his confidence. I met his stare, unblinking. "Her husband." The second man scoffed, sizing me up. "Well, husband, your wife is breaking the rules. We're just doing our job." "Your job," I said evenly, my voice low and steady, "doesn't involve trespassing on private property and threatening people." He smirked, but I could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. "Listen, pal, this is HOA business. Stay out of it." I took one slow step closer, closing the gap between us. Now we were eye to eye. "You made it my business the second you put your hands anywhere near my wife." They exchanged a glance, clearly weighing their options. They still didn't back down, though. The taller one puffed his chest out, trying to intimidate me. "Are you gonna stop us? Big man like you thinks he can take on both of us." A humorless smile touched my lips. "I don't think," I said softly. "I know." The silence that followed was heavy, thick with tension. Years of training had taught me how to project calm authority in the most volatile situations. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to threaten. My presence said it all. Still, for good measure, I let the weight of my past hang in the air. You boys ever serve? I asked, my tone almost conversational. They looked confused. What? Didn't think so, I murmured. Because if you had, you'd recognize when you're outmatched. The shorter one bristled. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, stepping even closer, lowering my voice so they had to strain to hear, that I spent over a decade doing things you can't even imagine for people who didn't deserve half the respect my wife does. And right now, every instinct I have is telling me to remove you from this property, forcefully, if necessary. The words hit them like a punch. They shifted nervously, their false bravado crumbling. The taller one opened his mouth, probably to spit out some weak comeback, but I cut him off. You've got 10 seconds to get off my property. After that, I stopped talking. For a moment, they hesitated, caught between pride and fear. Then, without another word, they turned and started toward the gate, muttering under their breath. I didn't move, didn't look away, until they were through and back in their SUV. The engine roared to life, and the vehicle sped off down the street. Only then did I turn to Emily. She was trembling, her eyes wide, but when she looked at me, her lips curved into a shaky smile. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Yes, I said softly. I did. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Men like that don't just walk away quietly. And if they came back, they'd be making the biggest mistake of their lives. Check mark. Want me to continue with part 2 in 1000 words where the HOA enforcers try to retaliate, and you unleash full Navy SEAL tactics? Or make it even more intense with a twist, police involvement, HOA president showdown, or legal drama? The police cars pulled away slowly, leaving behind flashing lights and a shaken neighborhood. My wife, Emily, sat on the front steps with a blanket around her shoulders, her eyes red from tears and anger. I could feel the storm raging inside me, but I kept my face calm. Years in the service had taught me to control my emotions, even when every instinct screamed for action. These HOA enforcers thought they could bully us into submission, but they had no idea who they were messing with. I knelt beside Emily and gently held her hand. You okay? I asked softly. She nodded, though her jaw tightened. I'm fine, I just can't believe they laid their hands on me. Over a fence hiding some flowers. Are these people insane? My fists clenched at her words. They're drunk on power, I said, keeping my voice even. And they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Emily looked at me, worry flickering in her eyes. She knew that look on my face, the one that meant I wasn't letting this slide. Please don't do anything reckless, she whispered. Reckless? No, I replied, standing slowly. Calculated. Absolutely. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, going through every HOA bylaw and local ordinance I could find. Years of tactical planning and recon missions made this child's play. I built a mental map of their weaknesses, their overreach, their history of harassment with other neighbors. They thought they could intimidate people because most folks wouldn't fight back. But I'm not most folks. First, I pulled their public records. Each board member had skeletons, financial troubles, shady real estate deals, even prior complaints. By 2 a.m., I had enough to bring down their little empire without breaking a sweat. Still, part of me burned for a confrontation. I wanted them to look me in the eye when they realized the consequences of messing with my family. The next morning, Emily was still asleep when I slipped out. I headed to the HOA office, a small, pretentious building meant to project authority. Their truck, the one they drove to our house last night, was parked outside. I smiled. Inside, 3 of them sat around a table with coffee mugs, looking smug. The moment I walked in, their faces twisted with a mix of irritation and arrogance. You can't be in here without an appointment, one of them barked. I closed the door behind me slowly, the sound echoing in the tiny room. Good thing I'm not here for an appointment, I said evenly, my voice carrying a tone that froze them in place. I'm here for a conversation. The leader, a balding man named Greg, leaned back in his chair, smirking. You and your wife caused quite a scene last night. If you don't want more trouble, you'll comply with the HOA regulations. I stepped closer, letting the silence stretch. You put your hands on my wife, I said softly. That wasn't enforcement. That was assault. Greg chuckled, but I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes. Careful with those accusations. Careful. I tilted my head, my voice calm, almost casual. You think I'm the one who needs to be careful. I've already filed a police report. I've got photos of the bruises on her arms, statements from neighbors, and security footage from my own cameras. I leaned on the table, my gaze drilling into him. You're going to pay for what you did. Personally. The other two shifted uncomfortably. Look, we were just doing our job, one muttered. No, I said sharply. Your job isn't to terrorize people. You crossed the line. And now, you've got two choices. Resign and publicly apologize to my wife, or I take this to the district attorney, the local news, and the state HOA oversight board. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed screenshots of their personal dirt. And trust me, you don't want what's in here going public. Greg opened the folder, and his face drained of color. His smug grin vanished, replaced by raw panic. You can't do this, he stammered. Oh, I can, I said, my voice like steel. And I will. Unless you make this right. For a long moment, the only sound was the ticking of the cheap wall clock. Finally, Greg nodded slowly. What do you want? I already told you, I replied. Resign. Apologize. And pay for the damages, medical bills, legal fees, everything. You have 24 hours. Then I turned and walked out without another word. By the next day, news spread like wildfire. The HOA president and two enforcers had resigned. Emily received a written apology, and our attorney confirmed the settlement check was already in process. Neighbors stopped by, some whispering their thanks, others sharing their own stories of being bullied. The HOA's little regime had crumbled overnight. Emily hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes. You didn't just protect me, she said softly. You protected everyone. I kissed her forehead. That's what I do, I said quietly. Always. As the sun set, I stood on our porch, watching the street, my senses calm but alert. They had no idea who they were dealing with. They thought I was just another homeowner. But I'm a Navy SEAL. I don't start fights, but I sure as hell finish them. And this fight, it was over before it even began. Check mark. Do you want part 3 to show what happens when the HOA board tries to get revenge and hires someone dangerous, only to learn they've stepped into a nightmare? Or should I add a courtroom twist where they still try to sue you and lose in spectacular fashion?